Welcome back to Nutrition 101. This course follows Sizer and Whitney's Nutrition, Concepts and Controversies 16th edition, but I've made adjustments by skipping and rearranging some of the material and adding my own images and information. The conclusion of Chapter 6 means that the course section on macronutrients has been officially completed. Now we turn the page to micronutrients, where we'll start with Chapter 7, the vitamins. The learning objectives for this video are to compare fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins, explore the roles, deficiency, toxicity, recommendations, and sources of the fat-soluble vitamins, explore the roles, deficiency, toxicity, recommendations, and sources of the water-soluble vitamins, and discuss factors affecting the vitamin content of foods. Vitamins are defined as organic compounds that are vital to life and indispensable to body functions. In other words, vitamins are needed for the body to work properly, and life is not possible without them. Vitamins are non-caloric and needed in small amounts in the diet, so they don't provide energy like the macronutrients do, and they get measured in milligrams and micrograms instead of grams. Vitamins are classified as fat-soluble and water-soluble. The fat-soluble vitamins include vitamins A, D, E, and K, and the water-soluble vitamins include 8 different B vitamins and vitamin C. The solubility affects absorption, storage, excretion, risk of toxicity, and requirements. Here you can see the different vitamins classified as fat-soluble and water-soluble. The B vitamins include thiamin, riboflavin, niacin, folate, vitamin B12, vitamin B6, biotin, and pantothenic acid. This chart explains how solubility affects various characteristics of the vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins are absorbed into the lymph first, stored in the liver or adipose tissue, and not readily excreted by the body. Because of the high storage capacity and low excretion rate, toxicities can happen. That's rare with food but may occur with supplements. Storage and excretion also affect requirements, with fat-soluble vitamins needed in periodic doses to maintain normal body levels. The characteristics of the water-soluble vitamins are much different. In most instances, they're the opposite of the fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins are absorbed directly into the blood. Most are not stored in the body and are readily excreted in the urine. Because of the low storage capacity and high excretion rate, toxicities are rare, even with supplements. Water-soluble vitamins are also needed frequently, otherwise a deficiency will develop. As part of this introduction to vitamins, one other concept to be aware of is vitamin precursors. These are compounds that the body can turn into active vitamins. They're also called provitamins. A classic example of a provitamin is beta-carotene, which is found in high quantities in red, orange, and yellow fruits and vegetables. Beta-carotene is a vitamin precursor for vitamin A. When we eat it, it's not active vitamin A, but the intestinal cells can transform it into active vitamin A before it enters circulation. Okay, that completes the first learning objective. Compare fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins. Now, we'll explore the roles, deficiency, toxicity, recommendations, and sources of the fat-soluble vitamins. First up is vitamin A. There are 3 active forms of vitamin A in the body. They are retinol, retinal, and retinoic acid. They play a role in eyesight by maintaining the health of the cornea and assisting with light perception, gene regulation, making sure the correct proteins are produced, and cell differentiation, which allows cells to carry out their unique and specialized function. As part of their role in gene regulation and cell differentiation, the active forms of vitamin A impact immune function, reproduction, and growth. Helping with eyesight is undoubtedly the role vitamin A is most known for. Vitamin A helps to maintain the health of the cornea, which is the clear outermost layer that allows light to enter and helps focus vision. It also assists in light perception by serving as part of a compound called rhodopsin in the retina. When light changes significantly, rhodopsin helps to send a signal to the brain's visual cortex so that a person's vision adapts to various settings. Part of vitamin A's ability to help with eyesight is its role in gene expression. In Chapter 6, we saw proteins are produced from the amino acid sequences that are copied from DNA. Vitamin A influences this process by binding to DNA and dictating the proteins produced by cells. Another place we see that role have an effect is in the goblet cells of tissues. Vitamin A directs mucus production in these cells. Mucus provides lubrication for the digestive and respiratory tracts, while also protecting numerous tissues like the skin from abrasive particles and bacteria. Vitamin A deficiency is rare in the United States but is a major concern globally. Consequences include night blindness and permanent blindness in the early and late stages of deficiency, respectively. They also include drying and hardening of the skin and body linings, increased risk of infection, impaired spermatogenesis, abnormal fetal development, and stunted growth. Night blindness occurs when poor vitamin A status limits the amount of rhodopsin available in the retina. Under normal circumstances, if someone flashes a bright light in your eye at night, your vision recovers rather quickly. However, with night blindness, recovery is prolonged, and you'll have trouble adjusting back to the dim or dark setting. Night blindness from vitamin A deficiency can be reversed through supplementation or increased intake of vitamin A-rich foods. With severe deficiency, the body can no longer produce the proteins necessary to preserve the clear window of the cornea, and it begins to harden and dry until a person is blind. At that point, the blindness is irreversible. The same drying and hardening process can occur in the skin and body linings. On the opposite end of deficiency, we have toxicity. Vitamin A toxicity is uncommon with food sources but possible with supplementation. One example of a food that can lead to toxicity is liver. Animals store vitamin A primarily in the liver, and so it's a concentrated source of it. Notably, excessive beta-carotene intake will not result in vitamin A toxicity. However, it may cause the skin to turn orange, which is reversible. Consequences of vitamin A toxicity include skin rashes, hair loss, bone abnormalities, liver failure, and birth defects. Finally, for recommendations, the RDA is 900 micrograms per day for adult males and 700 micrograms per day for adult females. The upper limit is 3,000 micrograms per day. The units are in retinal activity equivalents, or RAE, for food sources and recommendations, which helps account for the contribution from beta-carotene. It takes 12 micrograms of beta-carotene from food to supply the equivalent of 1 microgram of active vitamin A. Common sources of preformed vitamin A include eggs, fish, dairy, and organ meats. Sources of beta-carotene include sweet potato, carrots, cantaloupe, and spinach. As you can see, with more than 6,000 micrograms in just 3 ounces, eating liver can quickly put someone well over the upper limit of 3,000 micrograms per day. The next fat-soluble vitamin is vitamin D. Vitamin D is considered a non-essential nutrient, meaning we can satisfy our need for it without consuming it through foods or beverages. That's because the body can produce enough through exposure to ultraviolet light, which the sun emits. Vitamin D plays a role in calcium regulation and cell growth, multiplication, and differentiation. Its role in calcium regulation inextricably ties it to bone health. Its influence over cells has connected it to numerous body systems, including the immune system, and has led to it being investigated for a role in the prevention of various ailments, including cardiovascular disease and cancer. Here, we can see the production of active vitamin D from the provitamin in the skin. The skin cells contain the provitamin. When exposed to ultraviolet light, the provitamin undergoes a conversion and enters circulation in the blood. It passes through the liver and gets converted again, only to be converted one more time by the kidneys into its active form. The liver and kidneys must also convert dietary sources of vitamin D before it's considered active. Once active, vitamin D helps to make sure the appropriate amount of calcium is in the blood. When the calcium level begins to fall, vitamin D tells the kidneys to conserve calcium, the bones to release calcium, and the small intestine to absorb more calcium. Those actions, of course, bring the blood calcium back up to where the body wants it. Turning to deficiency, having an insufficiency is common, but overt signs of deficiency are rarely reported. Nevertheless, there are numerous risk factors for deficiency, such as geography, season, skin pigment, age, air pollution, and city living. Anything that may reduce exposure to direct sunlight will increase the risk of deficiency. Additionally, when exposed to an equal amount of sunlight, people with darker skin color produce less vitamin D than those with lighter skin color, and older adults produce less vitamin D than other age groups. Risk factors can even extend to items like sunscreen or clothing that block the sun's rays. Consequences of vitamin D deficiency include rickets for children and osteomalacia and osteoporosis for adults. Rickets involves poor calcification and distortion of the growing bones. Osteomalacia is the softening of bones, and osteoporosis is the hollowing of bone tissue that makes it fragile. This image shows what can happen with rickets. When growing bones have poor calcification, the force of gravity can cause them to bend out or in. In adults, chronic vitamin D deficiency can contribute to bone tissue loss, making them weak and susceptible to fracture. Like vitamin A toxicity, vitamin D toxicity is uncommon with food sources but possible with supplementation. Importantly, it cannot occur through sun exposure, so if you stayed out in the sun all day, there would be a point that the conversion of the provitamin would stop. When vitamin D toxicity does occur, consequences are related to elevated blood calcium. That can result in the calcification of soft tissues, including vital organs, which disrupts their function. It can also result in an irregular heart rhythm due to calcium's role in muscle contraction. The RDA for vitamin D is 15 micrograms per day for adults ages 19 to 70, and 20 micrograms per day for adults ages 71 and older. Meanwhile, the UL is 100 micrograms per day. These recommendations only consider vitamin D from food sources and assume no contribution from sunlight, which is difficult to measure. Vitamin D supplements are quite popular. The amount provided is usually expressed in international units, or IU, which helps standardize the biological activity of common substances. There are 40 IUs for 1 microgram of vitamin D, so the RDA is equal to 600 IU, and the UL is equal to 4,000 IU. Here are the food sources for vitamin D. Eggs, sardines, and salmon all naturally contain it. Milk is often fortified with it, meaning it's added during food processing. Mushrooms are a plant-based food that can contain vitamin D. However, they must be exposed to UV light first. Even though the contribution from sunlight is difficult to quantify, for sufficient vitamin D synthesis, a person should aim for 5 to 30 minutes of exposure between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., at least 2 times per week, without sunscreen. Obviously, the benefits of this exposure must be weighed against the risks, especially those related to skin damage and skin cancer. The third fat-soluble vitamin on our list is vitamin E, and we'll tackle roles, deficiency, and toxicity right here on this slide. The active form of vitamin E is called alpha-tocopherol. Its primary role is to serve as an antioxidant, meaning it protects against oxidative stress in the body. If not controlled, oxidative stress damages cells and DNA, and has been implicated in the development of various chronic diseases. Symptomatic vitamin E deficiency is rare in adults, but is seen in premature infants and results in anemia, which impacts the ability to deliver oxygen to cells. Like the other fat-soluble vitamins, toxicity is possible with supplementation and results in prolonged blood clotting times, increasing the risk of excessive bleeding. As mentioned, oxidative stress damages cells and DNA and has been implicated in the development of various chronic diseases. Free radicals cause it. Those free radicals are normal byproducts of metabolism whose production is accelerated by exposure to environmental contaminants like air pollution and smoking. The problem with free radicals is that they have an unstable atom or molecule containing an unpaired electron. Antioxidants stop them from wreaking havoc by donating electrons and giving them stability. So, vitamin E donates electrons to free radicals and therefore helps to minimize the damage. The RDA for vitamin E is 15 mg per day, and the UL is 1,000 mg per day. On average, intake in the United States is below the recommended amount, but is still sufficient to avoid symptomatic deficiency. One major reason intake is suboptimal is that common sources lose vitamin E content when exposed to heat, and this exposure is common in the vitamin E-rich foods people eat, particularly vegetable oils. Beyond vegetable oils, sources of vitamin E include sunflower seeds, broccoli, mayonnaise, almonds, and wheat germ. Last but not least, the fourth fat-soluble vitamin is vitamin K. The K stands for the Danish word coagulation, which refers to its critical role in blood clotting. Nonetheless, vitamin K also plays a role in bone protein synthesis. For deficiency, infants are born with low vitamin K levels and are at risk of blood loss. That's why one of the first things that happens when a baby is born is a clinician administers a vitamin K injection, a practice that the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends to prevent vitamin K deficiency bleeding. Symptomatic deficiency in other populations is rare. Toxicity is possible with supplementation, and it results in jaundice, which is characterized by a yellowish appearance of the skin and the whites of the eyes caused by the liver's release of the blood cell pigment bilirubin. The RDA for vitamin K is 120 micrograms per day for adult males and 90 micrograms per day for adult females. No UL has been established, suggesting there's insufficient data to determine the specific amount by which the risk of toxicity substantially increases. As an aside, humans can absorb vitamin K produced by intestinal bacteria. That reduces the risk of deficiency but does not make vitamin K a non-essential nutrient. It's also not accounted for in the RDA. Dark, leafy green vegetables like spinach, kale, broccoli, and cabbage are the best sources of vitamin K. Vitamin K is also found in high amounts in soybeans. Other sources shown include cashews, blueberries, and canola oil. Alright, that covers the 4 fat-soluble vitamins. In the next section, we'll transition to the water-soluble vitamins, following a similar pattern for each one. As a reminder, the water-soluble vitamins include 8 different B vitamins and vitamin C. The B vitamins include thiamin, riboflavin, niacin, folate, vitamin B12, vitamin B6, biotin, and pantothenic acid. Sizer and Whitney start with vitamin C, so we'll go ahead and do the same. Vitamin C is also known as ascorbic acid, and it plays a major role in collagen synthesis. Collagen is a protein that provides structure and support to tissues such as skin, hair, nails, ligaments, bones, and the connective tissue that forms scars. Like vitamin E, vitamin C also serves as an antioxidant, and through this activity, it's tied to immune function because immune cells use it to shield themselves from oxidative stress, and iron absorption, because it protects some of the iron we eat from being oxidized in the digestive tract and becoming non-absorbable. With its connection to immunity, vitamin C has long been regarded for its potential therapeutic properties. Many people believe it will prevent or cure illnesses, especially the common cold. So, can taking vitamin C prevent or cure a cold? As Sizer and Whitney put it on page 235, many people hold that vitamin C supplements can prevent or cure a common cold, but research most often fails to support this long-lived belief. In 29 trials of over 11,300 people, no relationship emerged between routine vitamin C supplementation and cold prevention. They go on to add that sufficient vitamin C intake is critically important to certain white blood cells of the immune system that act as primary defenders against infection. Even so, taking daily vitamin C supplements doesn't prevent colds in most well-fed people. Put simply, avoiding vitamin C deficiency is important to promote immunity, but taking high amounts does not appear to add extra protection, at least not to the point that it's worth recommending to everyone. That brings us to vitamin C deficiency. The deficiency disease for vitamin C is called scurvy. That name traces back to the 14 or 1500s to the time of European exploration. Scientists didn't formally identify vitamin C until the early 1900s, but when they did, the name they gave it paid homage to scurvy, translating to no scurvy acid. Today, scurvy is rare in the absence of a disease, starvation, or a very limited diet. The main complication of scurvy is collagen breakdown, resulting in issues like loose teeth, bleeding gums, and petechia, which are small red or purple spots caused by the destruction of tiny blood vessels. Scurvy also causes fatigue, weakness, loss of appetite, and an increased risk of infection. Vitamin C toxicity is uncommon with food sources but possible with supplementation. The consequences of toxicity are mostly gastrointestinal, manifesting as abdominal pain or diarrhea. Other consequences attributed to vitamin C toxicity include an impaired insulin response, interference with anti-clotting medications, precipitation of kidney stones in susceptible populations, and aggravation of gout for those with the disease. The RDA for vitamin C is 90 mg per day for adult males and 75 mg per day for adult females. The UL is 2,000 mg per day, meaning there's quite a wide range of safe intake. Tobacco oxidants deplete the body of vitamin C, and smokers are encouraged to consume an additional 35 mg per day. This recommendation also applies to passive smokers, a group that includes people who don't smoke but live with or are frequently exposed to others who do. The best sources of vitamin C are fruits and vegetables. Oranges are perhaps the source that's most easily identified by the public, but as you can see, other food sources contain a comparable or greater amount. For instance, the bell pepper provides nearly 200 mg per cup, and strawberries, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts all provide 100 mg per cup. Other foods shown include cantaloupe, kiwi, tomatoes, and potatoes. That brings us to the B vitamins. Before we get into the details for each one, we're going to address them in unison. One reason for that is because many of the B vitamins have overlapping functions. For example, niacin, thiamin, and riboflavin all play a major role in energy metabolism, and folate and vitamin B12 are required for making new cells and DNA. Additionally, all of them work as parts of coenzymes. In Chapter 6, we learn that enzymes are proteins that facilitate chemical reactions. Well, coenzymes work with an enzyme to promote the enzyme's activity and are thus vital to chemical reactions in the body. Here's an example of what a coenzyme does. Converting methylmalonyl-CoA to succinyl-CoA is a necessary step in protein and fat metabolism that's facilitated by the enzyme methylmalonyl-CoA mutase. However, for the enzyme to function, vitamin B12 is required as a coenzyme. Examples like this for different B vitamins exist in all levels of energy metabolism. The B vitamins in this image are depicted with their designated vitamin number in orange text. With that, we can begin to fully appreciate the analogy I presented in Chapter 1. If the body was a car, as energy-yielding nutrients, the macronutrients would be the gas that propels it. The micronutrients are like the oil and coolant. They don't propel the car like gas does, but they help support the processes that make it run smoothly. One final reason to address the B vitamins in Unison is that isolated deficiencies are rare and difficult to identify. Vitamin B12 is an exception to this, as a deficiency is easily identified through blood testing and is not all that uncommon due to some unique dietary preferences that limit intake and medical conditions that limit absorption. Putting that aside, many B vitamin deficiencies share consequences because of their overlapping roles. That includes nausea, fatigue, weakness, and loss of appetite. B vitamin deficiencies are also known to lead to a swollen red tongue and cracked skin at the corners of the mouth, both of which can be painful. Here are the recommendations for all the B vitamins. All of them have RDAs except for biotin and pantothenic acid, which have AIs. Similarly, some have ULs while others need more data to establish one. As indicated, these recommendations are for adults ages 19 to 50 and are presented as such for simplicity's sake. Now, we'll discuss each in more detail in the order listed. Beyond being involved in energy metabolism, thiamine plays a role in the function of nerve cells. The deficiency disease is called beriberi, and its consequences include weakness, loss of sensation in the hands and feet, and advancing paralysis. A severe form of deficiency is called Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. This syndrome is often associated with alcohol use disorder because alcohol impairs thiamine absorption and promotes thiamine excretion. Consequences include confusion, memory loss, jerky eye movements, and a staggering gait, representing a sort of intoxication in some respects that's irreversible if not treated immediately. The RDA for thiamine is 1.2 milligrams per day for adult males and 1.1 milligrams per day for adult females. The sources shown include peas, beef, beans, potatoes, mussels, pork chops, sunflower seeds, and enriched grain products like cereal and pasta. Next, we have riboflavin and niacin. Riboflavin is destroyed by exposure to ultraviolet light and irradiation. That's why you see milk, which is rich in riboflavin, usually stored in a cardboard or opaque plastic container. For niacin, the deficiency disease is called pellagra, which has roots in the Italian word pelle for skin and agra for rough. That alludes to a classic consequence of deficiency in dermatitis, or inflammation of the skin, which often occurs alongside other consequences like diarrhea and confusion. Another detail about niacin is that adequate protein intake can help prevent deficiency. That's because the body can convert the amino acid tryptophan to niacin. The RDA for riboflavin is 1.3 milligrams per day for adult males and 1.1 milligrams per day for adult females. Sources shown include almonds, milk, clams, mushrooms, eggs, chicken breast, and enriched cereal. Then for niacin, the RDA is 16 milligrams per day for adult males and 14 milligrams per day for adult females. Sources shown include peanuts, beans, chicken breast, potatoes, pork chops, tuna, and enriched cereal. The fourth B vitamin we'll examine is folate. As mentioned previously, folate is required to make new cells and DNA. Deficiency results in anemia, so there's an impaired ability to deliver oxygen to cells. That leads to fatigue, weakness, shortness of breath, and difficulty concentrating. Furthermore, deficiency during pregnancy can result in neural tube defects. Those are abnormalities of the brain and spinal cord that are apparent at birth. They can lead to a wide range of physical and cognitive impairments, and often occur before a person knows they are pregnant, meaning adequate intake is paramount during childbearing years. Vitamin B12 will forever be connected to folate because it helps to convert folate to its active form. However, it also helps to maintain the health of nerve cells. Vitamin B12 deficiency causes an anemia identical to that caused by folate deficiency. Yet, because of its role in nerve cells, it can also lead to impaired nerve and muscle function and changes in mental status. Vitamin B12 only occurs naturally in foods of animal origin. Some plant-based foods have vitamin B12 added, so people who follow a vegan or strict vegetarian diet can consume an adequate amount. Still, this is not a reliable way to prevent deficiency, so people who follow a plant-based diet are encouraged to supplement. Finally, vitamin B12 absorption relies on adequate hydrochloric acid production by the stomach. As a result, any condition that affects stomach function can lead to malabsorption. Aging isn't a medical condition, but an age-related decrease in hydrochloric acid production puts older adults at risk of deficiency. Folate and vitamin B12 are both measured in micrograms. The RDA for folate is 400 micrograms per day for both adult males and females. Folate is found in high amounts in plant-based foods, especially green leafy vegetables and legumes. The RDA for vitamin B12 is 2.4 milligrams per day, again for both sexes. Sources are almost exclusively animal-based and include chicken breast, milk, beef, oysters, clams, and salmon. Nutritional yeast is an example of a plant-based food that often has vitamin B12 added to it, which helps to boost the intake of those following a plant-based diet. There's far less to know about the last 3 B vitamins. Vitamin B6 plays a role in protein metabolism. As part of this, it helps convert tryptophan to niacin. Biotin and pantothenic acid both play a role in carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism. Biotin may also play a role in gene expression in cells, and pantothenic acid also helps with the synthesis of lipids, neurotransmitters, steroid hormones, and hemoglobin. That covers all the B vitamins and vitamin C, completing the 3rd learning objective. Okay, now that we've explored the roles, deficiency, toxicity, recommendations, and sources of the water-soluble vitamins, we'll finish by discussing factors that affect the vitamin content of foods. There are several factors affecting vitamin content. After harvest, enzymes in fruits and vegetables break down vitamins, which leads to vitamin loss over time. Nonetheless, there are environmental exposures that can accelerate this process. Environmental exposures that accelerate vitamin losses include air, ultraviolet light, heat, and water. Water-soluble vitamins are the most prone to be lost in food processing. Proper cooking, handling, and storage techniques minimize losses. With the environmental exposures that accelerate vitamin losses in mind, strategies to minimize vitamin losses include avoid high cooking temperatures, avoid long cooking times, minimize the amount of water used when boiling foods, use a cover when steaming foods, repurpose the water used for boiling or steaming, wash fruits and vegetables before cutting them, store cut foods in an airtight container, and store milk in a container that is cardboard or opaque. Finally, refrigeration, freezing, and canning are storage techniques that can help to preserve food. Refrigeration and freezing slow the enzymatic breakdown of vitamins, so both are effective at preserving the vitamin content, though freezing has a distinctive edge. Freezing right after harvest preserves almost all of the vitamins, making most frozen fruits and vegetables reliable sources. Canning stops enzyme activity, but ultimately results in vitamin losses. That's because the canning process involves using heat to kill microorganisms, which destroys some of the vitamins. Vitamins also dissolve into the canning liquid, which tends to get discarded once the can is open and the food is removed. Alright, that completes the 4th learning objective. We discussed factors affecting the vitamin content of foods, albeit briefly, and have come to the end of the lesson. If you want to check out parts of the chapter that weren't covered, here are the sections I recommend.